Thank you once again for taking the time to attend today's webinar on sprucing up candidate space. I have two presenters here, very excited, Ms. Ashley Rhodes, Mr. Matt Slazak. They are passionate about in-for talent acquisition. And with that, I give you Matt and Ashley.
Thank you. So now that we've actually been talked up and talking about how excited we are about it, I guess we have to be excited about this, right? Woo! Okay. All right. So we're here to talk about candidate space here. So one of the first questions that I think, might be fundamental for it is, some people have heard this and they might not really know what candidate space is. If they're very used to the S3 world, they might not know what it is. What is this animal? Let's go to the next slide here. My clicker is not working. Subtle. Okay, there we go. So we edit that part out completely. So, all right. So what actually is this? So if you're familiar with the S3 world, you might be familiar with the requisition manager. Or if you are using a third-party system, your Teleos, your brass rings, things like that, those third-party recruitment solutions. So candidate space in talent acquisition is just basically Infor's talent management system for recruitment. So this takes us cradle to grave on the candidate experience. From the moment they log into the system and look for your job or for jobs in your organization, all the way through when they become employees, when you actually onboard them. This is the system that's going to take care of that. So it's really the recruitment from the beginning all the way to the end. And when I say it's the beginning, we're not just talking about the internal candidates or the external candidates who might be applying, but we're also talking about your recruiters. We're talking about your hiring managers, the people in the field who are actually going through and posting a job out there, the people who really are going to be onboarding these people, selecting this talent that we're going to be bringing into the organization. So talent acquisition itself is organized into all these spaces. We've got our candidate space, we've got our recruiter space, we've got, to a lesser degree, the manager space, which becomes where we do the candidate selection. The hiring managers will start to go through it. And this concept of the hiring manager itself is relatively new. You don't always see it. It's not always the direct supervisor. It's the people who are actually going to make the call on who is going to be hired. Who are we actually going to bring in? So there's a separate role entirely for that. We also are able to, through talent acquisition, talk about the interview process. We are not limited to just a single kind of interview. We're not limited to just calling the person. We can send emails. There's active communication that we're able to drive through the system, really engaging those candidates and really finding the right talent to bring in. We've also got a lot of capabilities within talent acquisition for resume parsing and social media parsing. This is actually, we've got some really exciting new things that we'll show you on the resume parsing. The newest versions, we'll kind of tease that a little bit more. It's actually integrated in the system. No longer are we interfacing things back and forth. So we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about how we can really interface some of this stuff out to third-party job boards. So we'll touch on a lot of aspects of it. If you've got any questions, obviously, just type them on in and we'll definitely answer those as quickly as we can. But let's actually go into the new, most exciting piece of it. So let's talk about the resume parsing piece.
All right, guys, so the resume parsing. I know in the past we used telemetry, which was an interesting product. We had to, you have to actually interface with them as well. You have to get a contract. It's a whole process. Now the system has burning glass inside it, meaning you set it up to run it. I mean, it's as easy as checking, yes, we're running this, and boom, it's out here. So the candidate can register online, they can upload the resume, and it parses it for you. So it's easy as 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. No hoops, no magic, it just does it for you.
Right, we don't have to wait for that interface to run to telemetry and
then
bring that information back
in. No jobs have to be ran in order to do it either. So another thing, recruiters. You know, you're out at job fairs and you're taking these people's names down. You want to get them in the system. You want to get the process going. You can take their information down. You can load the resume in right there. and it will parse it out and create their profile for them. And then all they do is log in and can start applying.
Right. And this is actually really nice functionality. I've always been, if anybody has worked with me in the past on talent acquisition, I've always not been the biggest fan of resume parsing because my contention has always been, it's great, it just doesn't work very well. This has actually worked really well.
It's worked really, really well.
And you can see that, well, you probably can't see this, but there are a lot of the components that are automatically brought in. So this brought in my employment history, my education, my certifications. That was all just through a simple PDF upload.
Yep.
We did not have to do any manipulation. Not saying that we wouldn't want people to check
check
it back out.
Yes, of course.
Right, but at the very least, it did bring in a lot of this automatically. So.
Social media parsing, so that still does require a contract, unfortunately. Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, you can bring in your social media. Again, contracts needed for it. It's not delivered, at least not right now. Hopefully in the future, that's something that will just be delivered because that would be great. You can go out here, you create your profile, you select which one you want to load it from, and it pulls all of your information from your profile in and creates the profile for job applications.
Right, and right now there are the 3 options, right?
Yes, it's just the 3 right now. Yep, right. That's correct.
Yep. So that's some of the new stuff that we really wanted to talk about right away because it's kind of the fun stuff. So I'll bring us back to the boring stuff, I guess. And talking about manager space and what managers can actually do in the system. So this is kind of an overarching slide where we're talking about changing who can see what and who can do what. Right here, we're looking at something that is completely unconfigured. This is just a hiring manager's view of all of the candidates and requisitions that they have out there. So we've selected one of the requisitions. Automatically, out of the box, a hiring manager is only going to see the requisitions that they are listed as the hiring manager on. So even though a recruiter can see 800 jobs open, the hiring managers are just going to see the people they are attached to. So the landmark security is built in, and they're automatically going to see just their own people. But they can select one of these requisitions, and they just have a few simple tabs on here. Out of the box, you can see the hiring manager review, the qualify people, and the people you've dispositioned. But one of the first things that you can do when we're setting up these requisitions is we can set up screening questions. We can start to do some knockouts. If we know that we're hiring for a neurosurgeon, and we know that this person has to have at the very least, a doctorate. And if you ask the screening question of, have you graduated from high school, and they say no to that, we probably don't want to have to even bother with that candidate. So we can set up these screening questions to take care of some of that. But inevitably, whenever you do this out of the box, one of the first questions that you get from these people as they're looking at it, the hiring manager will say, well, I thought like 500 people applied to it. 499 are not even worth your time, but they want to see this. So you can definitely configure it to allow them to see everybody who has applied for it. You can also have them do different things. If you wanted them to have more tabs, if you wanted to see everybody who was screened out online, and you wanted to make that available for the hiring manager, you can absolutely do just some configurations for the security side, as well as in configuration console, and we're able to do that for them. You can also change what they're able to do. If you're not comfortable with your hiring managers dispositioning candidates for fear that they might choose the exact wrong reason for EEO purposes or something, which never happens in real life, never. But you can do something like that to modify or take away that ability for them to disposition. We also recently have built something out for a client where we changed what disposition reasons they could even choose. So even though we don't want, or we want the hiring managers to, disposition some people and get rid of them, we're only giving them 3 options instead of everything that they might possibly use. So there's a lot of configurations we can do to change who can do what and who can see what.
So can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
You stated earlier that only the hiring managers can see their requisitions. So what if I'm a director and I want to see all the hiring managers below me, I want to see what they're recruiting for. Is that something that can be done in the system?
Absolutely, absolutely. For some changes, it depends, it will ride on the supervisor structure. So I might be able to see my direct reports requisitions. And if we want them to see a little bit more, we can usually do some extra configurations to allow even more access to it. We've also seen situations where you might have somebody who is not even in that supervisor chain at all, and maybe they're functioning as a department administrator or something like that. Somebody who's kind of the point person for that entire section. We can modify a security role for them as well to be able to see everything in their whole section, as opposed to even just that supervisory chain. Okay. Moving on, something else that is probably one of my favorite techniques is to do multiple job boards. So if you're familiar with candidate space, we're able to attach certain keywords to requisitions. We can tag things by location or certain categories or certain work types. And we can allow people to filter down that list to just see those jobs that they might want. But if you're in a situation, we see this a lot in healthcare, for example, where we want to have all of the nursing positions all in one place. And we don't even want those nursing positions showing up on the rest of the job board. We can definitely do that. We can create a separate external job board that is just nursing positions. Not even any kind of filtration on there or anything else. We can just automatically have it, or we can give them a totally separate job board so that it's a different look and feel even. I've seen modifications where they might take this side area or build out some separate links inside here to show something that is nursing specific. Same kind of thing if you had, if you were a retail client and you wanted to show a job board just for a certain region or a job board just for a certain kind of store. You can definitely break those out into totally separate job boards. The nice thing there is, like I say, we can have totally different looks and feel at that point. Modify it completely, and you don't even have to worry about those candidates accidentally going into one of those sections that you don't want them to get to. We can just hide that from them completely.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I've seen candidate space before, and it didn't look like that. Is this a specific version you have to be on?
Yes. This will be, what you're looking at right here is a modification of what they call the new candidate space, which is different from some of that old version with the gear shift that N4 used to have.
Yeah.
So this is the new style candidate space, and you make a modification of a zip file that's within there. And you can change up all these colors and logos and all of that. That is available as of version 10.2.
10.2. Yep.
Okay. And then the nice thing is you'll have this zip file that you attach to the individual job boards. When you take that zip file and upload it onto the job board itself, it will be invoked and you'll see those totally different, the different schemes, and the whole look and feel is going to be totally different at that point. All right.
All right, job alerts. So this is a cool feature inside a candidate space. Say you're a candidate, you're out there looking for a job and you can't find anything, but hey, you want to know when something pops up. You need to be alerted. You've been out of work for a couple of months. You need to get going. You can set up a job alert inside the system, so you can put criteria around it. You can say, I need a full-time job. I'm looking for nursing. I'm looking for something in health. You can set that up inside the system, and whoever's in charge, of course, is going to schedule that job to run, because it is a process inside the system. It does have to be set up and scheduled. You can run it daily. You can run it weekly, monthly. That's really up to the client. When it runs, it'll send out an email from the system. Email is customizable as well, and it'll have the links down here. You can see all the job listings that have come available, and you can click view next to it, and it will take the candidate right to the job board, directly to that posting.
Mm-hmm. And you'll actually see some candidates who are kind of obsessed with your organization, who might have candidate space open all the time. And if they click on that view button, if they're already logged in, they'll go straight to that job and they can just click on the apply button.
Yep.
They don't even have to do anything else. If they haven't been logged in, they're just going to have to log in, authenticate, and then they'll be all set. Mm-hmm. And these will go on forever and ever and ever, right?
No, the max amount of notifications they can get from the system is 99.
Right.
Generally, a lot of clients like to set it to that 99, and that's fine. But as soon as they hit that 99 mark, they're cut off.
Right. And if you have a candidate who feels like they're being spammed by all these job notifications, I run it daily because I'm that kind of person. What can the candidate do at that point?
Block you.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they can go in and they can remove that job alert, so they're no longer receiving it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they can have multiple job alerts too.
Yes.
So.
Yes, you can have more than one. You can have, I think the sky's the limit with the job alerts. So if you're feeling, you want to put in one for every single location, by golly, you go for it.
Great.
Yep.
All right.
Send to friend functionality. This is pretty cool. Again, customized email from the system. Say I'm out there and I see this really cool job and I say, hey Matt, this would be great for you. Oh, but how do I send it to you? I guess I could copy the link and email it, but I can actually click on here to send to friend. I put in the email address of whoever I need to send it to, and it actually takes the job posting and it'll send it straight to the user. So you can see here, it'll send them a link to the posting as well, so they click it and then they're right in.
Great. This is something that's really kind of overlooked a lot of times by people, but it's really strong, good functionality because when you get right down to it, the people who are engaged, your engaged candidates, the people who are passionate about finding a career with your organization, they're a lot of times your best advertisement. They're going to be the source of your best candidates. So if they're excited about something and they want to take that initiative and say, hey, this is really great, you should check this out, you're actually going to get very good, high quality candidates out of that. So this is really something that we really stress. Yep. People should really look at this.
Yep.
All right. Private job boards with the quotes on there and everything. So what does this mean? We talked a little bit already about the job boards in general and how we can have multiple job boards for very specific recruitments, whether it be for those specific job categories or locations or things like that. But this is kind of an offshoot of this, where if we had a situation where we were acquiring a new practice or adding in a new store, we can absolutely go and create this private job board. I know that we're going to acquire your organization and I want to make sure that we get all of the information about the people who already work there. So I could take all these people's resumes. I'm going to bring in these 20 new people. They all work at this specific clinic. That's great, but now I have to take all these 20 resumes for these 20 people and hand them to a generalist or a recruiter who have nothing else to do the entire time, just waiting for those resumes to come in.
Right.
I would have to hand those to this recruiter who goes in and then manually types all this information in. Or we could take a job board and create it as a private job board and send this link, this specific URL, just to that job board to the people in that practice that we're acquiring. Have them start to fill in their information. Employee space, candidate space, they're all about empowering your candidates and your employees. You'd be surprised how often, people want to talk about themselves. They will start to give you every credential and every education certification that they've ever had. Hand this power over to them. Pass this out to the people as this private job board. We know we're bringing them in already, so let's find out all about them. They're going to give you more information than you could ever imagine or you can fit on a resume. They'll start to fill this in. And again, it's a private link at that point. We're just sending it to those people. The rest of the world could go in and that job is not posted anywhere else outside of this specific job board. So it's secure and people won't even see it unless they know that URL. I've also seen this happen when you're looking at, let's just say that we're hiring somebody at the C level. We're hiring some executives. I could sit there and page through for days for, a 5-page CV that an executive might have. We don't want that person to actually go in and have to type in all this information. Even if we've got the resume parsing out there, that's great. But we can do this as a private job board. Send it specifically to that C-level executive and say, all right, we're bringing you in, we know that, but can you just give us more information so we have you in the system? So we can send that out to them, and we don't have to worry about manually entering it in ourselves.
Mobile capability. So some fun new features they've added in the latest release. No longer just expressing interest. So anyone in the earlier versions of talent management will probably remember this, when you could go and it would be, oh, great, it's mobile, we can see it. Express interest? Yeah, it's like like on Facebook. Okay. Now you can actually go on and you can create your profile. You can apply for jobs from your phone. You can answer those questions from your phone. It's fully mobile right now,
Right.
which is great. It works on your iOS. It works on Android. Works on Windows. But we forgot to put it up here because it's Windows.
I've had that note 5 times to add it to the slide, and I still won't do it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Obviously, we know you've got preferred choices.
Which, ironically enough, is Windows. But anyway.
So it's just a great feature. It is customizable as well. So it's in that zip file. So you can go in and you can change, you can change up your colors and everything in here. You can change it, put your logo on there. So there are a lot of different options on it. You can require certain fields. It's just great because now it's not just express interest.
Right. And the thing is here also, when we're looking at these screenshots, this is not, you don't just get 4 measly screens. These
Right.
are just samples. You do get the full profile
get the full, yeah.
and the full application.
Yes.
So for people who are not on this specific version, which one is this? It's 11?
11.
Okay.
You have to be on 11. Yes.
Right. And for those of you who do have the express interest right now, it's okay. We can get through this. There are a lot of automations that I know that you've built and I've built as well.
Yes.
To kind of automate that process. If somebody does click that express interest, let's proactively reach out and get them.
Yeah.
So we can build some process automations to really make sure that we're getting that person in the fold. So.
Yes. And then hope that in the future you're planning to upgrade so you can get the full capability.
Right. So if you don't know this already, if you haven't heard this messaging from Infor, they are making a big push into mobile. Everything that they're doing right now is going to be mobile enabled if it's not already. So I don't think you have to worry about this going away or being a forgotten functionality. They're definitely pushing it.
Yeah.
So.
Interviewing. So there's a really cool feature that's been added to the interviewing, but I'll get to that in just a minute. First, the types, the sky's the limit as far as how many types you want to put in the system. There's in-person, online, group interview. There's, second, third, fourth, fifth. I mean, how high you want to go, that's completely up to you. And the results, you can put in as many results as you'd like. I've seen this used many different ways. Every client is different. The cool feature about interviewing is this online interview functionality that was added to the system. So you can now, during your screening process, maybe you want to ask them additional questions before you bring them in for an on-site interview. You can go ahead and set those up on the requisition and send them an actual form. They'll get an email from the system, again, customizable email. You can put whatever you like on it. They click a link, they'll log into your career site, and it'll pop open a form with all of your questions that you want to answer them. Once these questions are answered, again, you can customize another email template, my favorite, and your recruiters can receive a notification or an email whenever their interview's been completed, so they can go straight into the system and see the results, and they can see whether or not maybe they passed or they failed, or if they want to continue and bring them on site.
Right. And with those interviews, or with those questions as well, we can definitely customize those however we want to, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep, they're completely customizable, and it can be different for every single job requisition out there. So.
And we can even require follow-ups and things like that
Yes.
if they answer certain questions a certain
Yes.
way. So You've got a lot of options to do with the interviews and just overall questions. Question sets you could go on for years about.
Yep.
The big takeaway is if you don't use them right now, start using them.
Yes.
And then they can really be very, very powerful for you. And you can see that they're touching a lot of different aspects. We talked about them with knockout questions in general, but interviewing is also a great place to use them.
Yep.
Okay, so internal recruiting. If you look at any documentation, any studies that have been done in the HR world, I'm a big data nerd, so I love looking at this kind of thing. If you look at any of these studies, you can see all over the place in black and white the metrics behind your internal population, your internal candidates. It's much more cost effective to bring in somebody internal to your organization than go and recruit outside of the organization. You're saving time, you're saving money. You have a very large candidate pool at your disposal right now. No matter what size your organization is, you've got all the people who already work there. And you can definitely start to look for people within your organization to fill some of these positions. Employee space enables your people to enter information about themselves. I mentioned before that you open up employee space and people are going to start to tell you about every certification that they've ever had.
And high school achievements, don't
forget.
forget.
High school achievements, and they've got that bachelor's degree in basket weaving. That's really important in a healthcare
scuba diving
setting. Absolutely.
Certification.
Yep. We need to know about that. They are going to tell you all about this. So, we kind of joke about it, but at the same time, it's an excellent thing for you to be able to see about your employees. If I need somebody who has a master's degree in business administration, maybe I've got 15 people in the organization right now who have their MBAs, but we don't require it for their job, so we're not tracking it right now. You open up employee space, all of a sudden, you're going to be amazed. Your workforce, when you open up employee space fully and let people start to put in their own certifications and employment history and education records, you're going to be amazed at how smart your employees are. You never knew about some of these skills that people have. But because of that, when we start to open that up, when we're using talent acquisition, we can start to proactively look at that and see what skills our organization have, what our employees actually have out there. So when we do that, it really opens up this idea of us being able to have proactive recruiting. We're no longer just sitting there waiting for people to apply to a job. We're no longer being passive about it. We're actively going out and looking for the talent that we need. And more importantly, just because they haven't applied for this specific job, I'm just posting this job brand new right now, I can start to proactively look at this before I even open it up to the external world or to anywhere else and start to see, do I have somebody who fits this bill already? The nice thing is they do have the opportunity to say whether or not they want to apply for it. There's always this nice balancing act that we have to take when we're doing anything with talent acquisition and saying, all right, well, for EEO purposes, for AAP purposes, we're really concerned about, who's an applicant versus who's a candidate. We can start to allow the system to take care of whether or not they want to apply themselves. More importantly, as a recruiter, if I know that this person is going to be interested and we want to make sure that we count this person for AAP purposes or EEO purposes, I can go in and mark them as applied so that we know that they're actively part of the candidate pool that we want to look at. So just to show you a couple pieces of this, when you look at any candidate in the candidate pool, we have this nice little button inside there to say that we want to attach this candidate to another requisition. They might not have applied to anything at all, but we want to do it proactively. We can do that, and at that point, the recruiter could go in and mark them as applied and start to take them through the process. I can start to move them to, push them over to the hiring manager, or we could, we'll end up even dispositioning those people. It's all good. We can do that, and we can start to see that. But if we're concerned about whether or not this person is going to flip from an active or from a passive candidate to an active candidate, we're again going to be able to notify the candidate, send something out to them to make them make that choice. Do they actually want to apply for this job or not? The other thing that we've got inside there is when we're looking at that situation and we know that we're going to be hiring for this new MBA, we need to have somebody with an MBA, you can start to go through and look at your resource education or look at your resources credentials. Start to look at that proactively. Just invoke those lists in your as a recruiter, and you're going to be able to find all those potential candidates. A lot more time, much more time and energy efficient if we can start to get somebody internally. So definitely something a lot of people do not look at.
So can I touch on candidate tags? Because candidate tags would be a great way also, would it not? To help filter through your different candidates to see if anyone has, leadership skills. You could pull a report from TA and pull everybody out of the system that has leadership skills for a position that you have to have filled by tomorrow or your boss is going to be really upset.
Absolutely. Candidate tags, and then I didn't even touch on like the calculate fit. Yep. If you have built out the system the right way, we can start to see exactly where this person's gaps are. Definitely something that's a great functionality. So
would you say talent acquisition really requires your jobs and your positions to be built out?
Wow, yes, absolutely. Yeah, one of the first things is if you want this system to work really, really well, absolutely build out your jobs and positions. Take the time now. It's going to be worth it in the long run to do that. Good point. Yes, sir. I think we have a question.
We have a quick question. I didn't want to break the rhythm you had going there, but the question is, does this product only work with global HR?
It does work. You need to have a lot of components set up in global HR in order for talent acquisition to work.
Yes.
You're going to need your jobs and positions. You have to have your recruiters set up. You have to have your hiring managers set up. So to take advantage of everything within the system, you definitely have to do a lot of GHR work for it.
Right.
What's that?
It's on the roadmap to be standalone.
Yes, it is on the roadmap to be standalone product. Is that this coming year or?
Beta.
Okay.
Betas.
Okay. So in case you could not hear that, they are currently in beta to make that a standalone product. But it's tough for me to say exactly how much of GHR build you have to have it in order for that to work out.
Okay, we have a second question.
Okay.
Candidate tags. Can those follow the candidate to their employee record if you hire that person?
Ooh.
There's not really an employee tag per se, but you should be able to get that information over from the candidate.
You should be able to still pull it, though. It'd be a configuration in the system, but
Right.
I can't see why you couldn't pull that in.
Yeah, for anything like that, if you've got the same name field, we should be able to bring it over automatically. But in this case, like I said, a couple configurations. So.
And I have one more question if you're so willing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any steps to configure candidate space to add some verbiage? I'm assuming to add like help text and things like that, because they haven't found a lot of documentation available.
Oh yeah, you can add it either via the zip file, or the easiest way is inside the system actually. And I could tell you probably right off the top of my head where, but underneath the talent acquisition setup, you'll go into the wizard text setup and you can actually set up for the candidate profile or the job application. That would be the fastest and easiest to do. Again, if you have somebody who's a whiz with HTML, you can edit those files and add the verbiage there.
Right, and then on top of that, you're talking about with the zip file. If you wanted to, you can also manipulate the help text that's automatically in there, which is more of the document version of the text or of the help version or help section.
The help section, yeah.
You absolutely can go in and modify that and upload that into the zip file as well.
Yep.
So that's kind of not in line. Which I think more of what the question was. So, but no, you answered that perfectly. And yeah, so that's kind of the sidebar to it. You're able to modify those help texts as well. So, I believe we have okay. All right.
All right, so maintaining candidate pools. I know a lot of you guys out there probably have your Evergreen Recs. You can still have your Evergreen Recs and talent acquisition. Really what you're going to do is you're going to open your requisition. You're not going to put any FTE or anything on it, so it doesn't affect your position budgeting if you've got that turned on as well. And basically what you're going to do is when these candidates come in, they're going to apply on these Evergreen requisitions. Now, you're not going to hire them on the requisition. You may interview them, you may do, all of that up to the hiring point, but at that point, you'll actually transfer them to a new requisition and hire them off of there. We also have the time to fill, which you can set up in the system so you can be alerted, your recruiters can be alerted that, hey, boss is going to be really upset if you don't have this position filled within the next 5 days and it's flashing red at you. So there are a couple of different options that you can do there.
Right. And the nice thing is here as well, when they start to apply for these Evergreen Recs, the ones that are open forever, they've become part of your talent pool. So just as I'm talking about the proactive recruiting, we're feeding off of those requisitions as well. We can start to see these people. Evergreen Recs, I've also heard them called talent pools, waiting lists. People call them lots of different things, but officially I don't think we're able to do this, but this is definitely a way we can kind of get around that. So, not that we're used to gaming the system at all.
No, never.
Never.
No.
Okay. Third-party recruiters. So this happens a lot, I know, in healthcare, and I've seen it in a couple of other industries as well, where we might need to open up our candidate pool more. We are used to seeing these same 500 people who apply for every single job that we ever post. But we really need to broaden our horizons. We need to be able to find more people, maybe outside of our geographic area or anything like that. So we might contract with a third-party talent acquisition company. Recruiters who are going to go out and really be the headhunters, try to find those purple unicorns out there. So we want to find more of these people to bring in. So in order to do this, we can absolutely allow third-party recruiters into the system. There's a couple little caveats on there. We need to make sure that they are set up as a resource. So this would be a situation where we would go and add in a new kind of relationship to the organization, add in a contractor or something like that. Somebody who's not paid through traditional means. Get them in as a resource record, and then you set them up as a recruiter. You'll give them access at that point to recruiter space, and they can start to function as a recruiter just like everybody who's on your regular payroll. Now, you can also do some things to modify their role specifically to only see, for example, external candidates, or we might not want to allow these third-party recruiters to go in and headhunt from internal people. At that point, you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So I've filled this position over in the ICU, but now NICU has a problem because they're down one. So maybe we want to lock down these third-party recruiters from actually going in and stealing from our own talent. Absolutely, we can do that. We just have to modify the security role at that point.
Third-party job boards. So, cool saying in the system, and it's actually delivered. 9 times out of 10, we have to configure it, but it is delivered. We can interface with different job boards like Career Builder, Monster, and the system will actually create an HR XML file, and it sits it out there on your server, and you push that file out to whoever you're wanting to interface with, which is, it's great to have. Another thing is when they're applying on these different job boards, so when they're out there on Monster, you can actually have it so they click a link and they come back into your system. Now, when I say they're coming back in your system, they're not going back to your main job board, they're actually going to this Monster job board. So you can actually more effectively track where your candidates are coming from. So maybe you don't need to spend X amount of dollars at Monster because you're only getting like 3 candidates a month from there. So maybe that's just not an effective, recruiting method. It's great to have. Again, it's delivered inside the system. Normally have to configure it though.
So is this like when you have a service that goes in and scrapes your external website?
No, this is completely different. So they're just scraping from the outside. What we're doing here is we're actually designing this file, really fitting it into the needs and shaping your postings, for these different job boards, and we're pushing that file out to those different career boards.
Right. And the nice thing is here as well is when they go to those third-party job boards and we're getting that information back in as the candidate, we can have the source information tied into it. So just as we see people who have applied for Monster, we can also start to see that through the source, and we can start to do some nice analysis on the back end to see, like you said, is this actually worth it? Are we getting high quality candidates? Or conversely, if we've got somebody who, they're going to Monster and we're always getting our absolute A1 top candidates from Monster, that's a great investment for us. But it's nice when you have to renew that contract at that point, you can point to the metrics then and say, yep, it's definitely worth it. We're getting our purple unicorns from them. So
Yep.
it's an HR term. It's weird.
Yeah, that's a new one for me.
Yeah, so.
Another benefit is now the recruiter won't have to go out to all these different job boards and post them, which takes extra time. And here they can just go in, click post. They've got their file sitting out there. And again, you can also configure to remove as well. So you can unpost from the system and it will unpost from those job boards as well.
Right. Yeah, we didn't even touch job postings during this presentation because we knew we were going to be crunched for time.
Yep,
so,
sorry.
No, the follow-up webinar at that time. But absolutely, we can have each job board look a little bit different in terms of what the posting looks like, ways around that. So, all right, so coming soon. So this is a very bland slide, but it actually belies the importance of it. One of the biggest pushes that's happening right now with Infor is to do more with candidate space itself. And they're going to start to change up how candidate space looks. The look and feel right now, it's definitely different than what you would see with your Teleos and your brass rings. Definitely different product right now. But one of the big pushes that Infor is making is really to make it more user-friendly from the candidate side. So they're adopting this CRM philosophy. So customer relationship management is what you would say is the traditional version of what CRM would be, but they're really going to kind of shift it and say it's more of a candidate relationship model. The biggest thing about it is we're going to make it a little bit easier for people to use, but then we also want to open the doors to communication with them. We no longer want it to be very transactional, where we just go in and say, I'm applying for this job and that's all I'm doing. Instead, we want to be able to talk to these people. We want to engage them. Again, your engaged candidates are your best candidates. They're going to be the people who are motivated. So we want to be able to see these people. We want to be able to send more emails to them. The system can do a lot of that right now. We've built some modifications as well to just burst things out to 50 people who have applied for this job before. Just checkbox them and send them an email, all generically. We can definitely do that. But they want to build that into the core product as well. So that's one of the focuses that they're taking. The other big push right now is they're going to be doing more with mobile capabilities. We already talked about, and we saw some screen grabs there from applying by your phone. Absolutely can do that, but they're going to be expanding that out a little bit more as well. The whole concept of being able to apply just from your phone a few years ago was laughable. I was one of the people who was laughing at that myself. So I would always say, is somebody actually going to sit there on their phone and type in everything on their resume? They're really integrating more and more of that in. The resume parsing, I believe that's one of the things where that's going to be available on the mobile as well. They're really working toward a lot of this. That will also go into the whole transition management thing. So when we're onboarding a candidate, we've picked this person out, we know that they're going to come in, and we want to be able to really have them do a lot of things day one. We want to give them some forms to fill out. We want to have them do some of their taxation. Here's our dress code policy. I want to sign off on it. Same thing if I'm cross-boarding, if I'm going from one position in the organization to another. That's what our transition management is. That's a whole other webinar. We could talk for hours on just that one. But that's another thing where they're really focusing on our mobile capabilities, to be able to complete that onboarding process all through mobile devices. So your phone, your iPad, your Galaxy Tab, whatever it happens to be. you absolutely should be able to do that on the mobile side. So that's more of what they're moving toward. A lot of it is built in right now, but they're looking at supplementing it and really making it more user-friendly. Okay. So now we're on to the infamous next slide, which is all black, as you can see.
It's supposed to say questions.
Yes.
We have got some questions.
Okay.
We have a couple questions here. How do you pull the report on how many people are applying to which job board? Is there a standard report?
There is a source report.
Yes.
That being said, the out-of-the-box one, you probably would want to make some configurations to, just to see a couple extra fields, but
Yeah.
there are some built-in metrics on that. I can't remember exactly how you navigate to it right
That's
now.
an analytic cube, actually, I believe the source report is.
Right.
So that one's a lot trickier to edit, depending on the version that you're in.
Right. So, long story short on that one, you can get to a lot of it. I would say just reach out to us. We'll put our email addresses up in a few minutes and can start to see that.
Also, I'll point out that tomorrow, Matt Slazak will be back with Melissa Olson to talk about some strategies for GHR reporting. So whoever had that question might want to check it out. I believe it's at the same time tomorrow, 1 o'clock.
Right. And we'll add in more stuff about talent acquisition reporting at that point. All right.
And more questions. In regards to the enhancements you talked about, are they only for version 11 or are they going back to version 10 as well?
I think it's all version 11 at this point.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything added in 10, have you?
No, for the most part, it's GHR 11 that
Yeah.
you have to get to. I think the landmark version, the base one is like 10.2.2 or something.
10.1.1.
10.1.1.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's actually on 11 as well now.
All right. So yes. So you do have to have at least some upgrades. I don't think they're pushing too much backwards.
So version 10, version 11, I mean, is it, if somebody's on GHR version 10, does it make sense to start moving to version 11?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it does.
And of course, that's independent of the financial system. Obviously, you have to do
Yes.
testing and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Another question,
How complicated is it?
which is very complicated, is
We have a
So-
question here on just, is it complicated to move to version 11? And obviously the short answer is, it depends. But I'll let
Yeah.
you expand on that.
Yeah, it's really going to depend upon how much you have built already within GHR, and then how much you want to expand that out. I've seen people who have done, we've both seen people who have done massive configurations already. So that lift might be a little bit harder for them because you have to really kind of take it back to the base, look at what it already is now doing out of the box, and then making sure your configurations will still work on that.
Yep.
And you're not really, I've seen a lot of people who might forget to check their security roles, for example. So, you want to check that kind of thing out. So it really depends upon how you're set up currently.
A conversation we'd be happy to have with anybody out there that's looking at it.
Upgrade process, not so difficult. It's dealing with all the data and the customizations that you've got going on. That
Right,
makes it
right.
difficult.
Absolutely.
this requires your crystal ball. Is functionality coming that would allow a candidate to apply to multiple postings at once without having to go through each specific job posting? This happens a lot with school districts where teachers are applying to multiple teaching spots at different schools.
So I'm not sure if they're planning on building something like that out right now. But that being said, this could be a situation where you might want to leverage an Evergreen Rec,
Yep.
where we might have a position that is, for example, just a third grade teacher, and it might apply to every single school that you've got within the district. That might be one way to play it. You might also go the other way with it and just say that it's just a K through 12 teacher within this specific school. So I think your Evergreen Recs might be your best way to do that at the moment, in lieu of that functionality being built out. Obviously, we would have to discuss it a little bit more and make sure we're not missing any subtle points on it, but that might be in 2 seconds of thinking about it, that might be a way
That's
to play
where I
with
was
it.
going to. So.
So we
Yeah,
agree.
we'd be certainly willing to have that discussion. If just give us send us a note to questions@rpic.com, and we'll set something up.
Okay.
All right.
all I have.
If that's all we have, I want to thank Matt and Ashley for a really terrific presentation.